Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Money in the Law here on My FM 101.3 and House and Cable Access TV with your host, Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group. I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial. We're joined with Christian Bidet, who is the executive producer of the House and Cable Access TV. He's the only one that stays in here with us because nobody from WMRC is here because they kind of put us on autopilot.
But at this stage of the game, after 7 years, they know we may have figured it out. We may have figured it out.
In the bank. Jay, how are you today?
Doing well, my friend. Doing well. Doing very well.
Jay's dressed up. For those of you in radio, Jay is dressed up particularly well today. He's got a big presentation, he told me.
That's right. Not court.
I think he's wearing a new suit.
Not court.
He might be wearing a new suit. Me, on the other hand.
Court. Yep, you're dressed up like a day at the beach.
Well, not necessarily, but you know, my hair's a little funny today. You know, but it's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Not your fault.
I'm ready to go.
You're casual.
I'm here to work.
Business casual.
I'm here to work.
Business casual.
I have a quick shout out to the Holliston girls soccer team. Last night won their first playoff game, right?
Fantastic.
Won their first playoff game. In the fog.
Go Lady Panthers.
The Lady Panthers were there. And they play, I think they play, I'm not sure their next game, but they're rolling. They're in the playoffs.
So look it up, first of all.
Yeah.
Number two, go to the game.
And if it's Saturday, which is today, as they may have already played, but they won their first one. So
that's right. That's right. So getting after it.
Yeah.
Getting after it.
So that's the first shout out. And I get to do. I got to call the game.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've been calling the game from the beginning of the year, and you can definitely see from like the September games
how you've progressed.
Yeah, it's you know what?
It's fun. It's fun.
It's not easy, but you know what you got to do? You got to commit to it.
Yes.
You got to be all in. And it wasn't until I was listening to the radio one. So I'd done a couple games, and I'm like,
you fake it till you make it, right?
Right.
Yeah,
and then I'm listening to the radio one day, and I'm flipping through the channels, and I come across a soccer game that's all in Spanish, and it's on the radio, and I could tell it's a soccer game just because you could kind of hear it. You know, you get the vibe of it. Yep. I didn't understand a word the guy was saying. That guy was so enthusiastic calling him. I'm like, I got to step it up.
You got to be into it. Well, you know what it is? I mean, look, you know, if you're listening to something on the radio, you take your energy from those people that are putting out energy, right? And if they're putting out low energy, then you're going to watch it and be like, man, this is slow. But you watch an upbeat soccer game, you know, then you say to yourself, and by the way, we may have had this conversation, but I love soccer. I'm a fan. I love watching the game. And people say all the time.
You're probably better than you give yourself credit for.
Well, people say all the time, how could you ever watch that game? I said, how could you watch a game? To me, soccer is 90 minutes of the last 2 minutes of an NBA game.
Right.
Right? Now, I could turn around and say to somebody, I get it, but how about watching 2-2, 4-2, 4-4,
0-0,
6-6,
yeah.
8-6, 8-8. I said, you're going to watch that for, the last 2 minutes, that's the game, right? Ninth inning of a baseball game, that's the game, right? So for those games, I said, look, soccer is 90 minutes of that. One goal could make the whole thing work. So the level of intensity, it's a different, you know, but I agree with you. If you're watching it and the presentation that you're listening to is slow, then you might not feel that same way.
Which is why all of you listening to the radio right now, your energy level, get ready to take it to another level.
Way up. That's right.
And you know what? We're sorry. You know, if you didn't want to do that, then we're sorry.
Well,
yeah.
This is better than coffee and yoga when you're Saturday morning. Get after it, right?
This is the equivalent of 2 cups of coffee, a shot of espresso, and an hour and a half of yoga.
That's right.
Jay's Yoga Parlor.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Hot yoga.
So what else is new? What else you got?
Nothing. My daughter got her first. I talk about shout outs. My daughter got her first college acceptance letter.
Shut the front door.
Yep. So you want to talk about...
So that's great.
Well,
now you know you're going to college, right?
That's all they care about, right? Am I going to college? Yes. Yeah. I got a letter. Where's it from? It's from Revere School of Technical Services. Rats. Doesn't matter. You just go in there. That's fine. You got a place to go. That's what matters. So she got her first college acceptance letter. She's over the top. She's got probably, like all of them, she's probably got probably got a dozen of them out there that she's waiting to hear on. But she's going somewhere, so she's very excited. But that basically, we've talked about this before in the show, there's a couple milestones along the way that kind of make you feel like you're getting old.
Yeah.
I mean, when your daughter gets, like, you know it's happening, right? And all through sophomore and junior year, there's that prep thing, like it's happening. Yeah,
you're visiting schools.
That's right. They get that letter. It's real.
Oh, it's happening.
It's really happening, and you're really old, right? You're like, oh man, wait a minute, and I'm trying to like walk. I'm trying to like try not to Kenny Chesney this thing with my daughter because her and I are gonna burst into tears, you know. But I'm like, this is happening. This is a real thing. This is gonna next year. You are walking out the door, right?
So for you haven't done this yet.
No, we have not.
So you're gonna have. So there's gonna be the delivery. right?
Yep.
There's going to be the drop-off at college. That's an emotional event.
Oh,
yeah,
I've talked to some friends who we have maybe given a shout out on this radio show.
Yeah.
And these are guys that,
Tough guys.
Tough guys, that's right.
guys.
They would
Yeah.
take a lacrosse ball in the face, wouldn't even blink, right? Wouldn't even blink, right? And these are the guys that we were all talking about this. Every single one of them, to a person, said to me, even talking about it, they were like, I can't even talk about it. They're like, I can't even talk about it. I mean, for all the right reasons, everybody has that story about who cried the most on the way back from college, right? And it's usually a battle, right, to see who was more teared up and what made you
So that's the reality of it. And the cool thing about it is you can kind of you always make a plan to, like, we'll see you soon, right?
Yeah,
we'll see you soon.
that's right.
So this is the part that no one told me about. So it's the "we'll see you soon" part. That's when it hits you. That's when you realize that things are different, because up until the point, for most people, up until the drop off, right? Up until that day, you pretty much know where your kid is all the time.
Yep.
You know, pretty much. You know what they're doing all the time. You have a general idea of kind of where they are, what they're doing, who they're with, all the time. Once that drop off happens, then that goes away. Then, and you don't, and when you see them for the first time, so when they come home for the first time, or you go up and visit them for the first time, it hits you and you're like, wow, you know what? You don't look different. You don't sound different, although they may, kind of picked up a few quirks hanging out with their weird friends or whatever, which is normal.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you appear the same. I saw you a month ago.
Right.
But you're different. You're different. I'm different. Everything's different now because I don't have that same kind of oversight that I had for you.
Oh, no. They are off leash. They are off leash.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. They're well, if they were dogs, but they're not.
That's right. But they're not. No, that's right. That's not. They stay
But
off.
they're on their own, and they're making their own choices, and they're setting their own schedule. And you can remember when it was you, right? When it was you, you're like, this ain't so bad, right? Then if you were fortunate enough to have a fun college experience, then this is really not so bad.
This is awesome.
This is really not so bad. Yeah, no, Dad, I'll be home when Thanksgiving.
I might hang around. I might hang around this weekend. I got a little work next week. Some things I want to catch up on.
I want to stay. I want to stay here for the summer. I'm thinking about staying here for the summer.
Getting an apartment with some friends of mine. Because I want to maybe take some classes. And sure you are.
So I appreciate that you are now you've kind of taken the next step in this journey because. Yeah.
Well, we've been fortunate in the sense that we've had friends of ours like yourself, and we've had family members who were just on the other side of this. So, while everybody obviously experiences it on their own, we have sort of vicariously stood on the sideline and watched this thing unfold. So we have again, it's not the same, and everybody, you have to experience it to really know what it feels like.
It's the same thing as like when people say, "Oh, this is what it's like having a kid." Oh,
sure.
You'll say,
Okay.
You don't know until you know.
That's
like
right.
you'll
That's
know.
a great point. Yeah.
You don't know until you know, and when you know, you'll be like, "Oh."
So I give my daughter a hard time, and then we'll move on to your topic for the day. But I give my daughter a hard time all the time. And I got 1 year to coach you up, first thing, and then second thing, she's as she knows it's going to be an emotional shakedown for her as much as it is for us, right? Because she's thinking the same thing.
She's that kind of kid.
That's right. She's that kid, and we've joked about it.
We've talked about her before.
We've joked about it. So she knows, and she knows it's coming. And her and I don't talk about it a lot.
She's prepping it for right.
That's right,
Dad. Listen, I'm going to
stay
be
away
okay.
from
Yeah.
That's right. We change the channel. How about them Red Sox? How about them Red Sox? Right. So that's good stuff.
So we were on the way in. We were talking. We said, you know what? What about? And the reason this came up is because a lot of clients are talking about. We have the upcoming presidential election that will be happening. It's starting to get into
under a year.
It's getting into gear now. Right?
Under a year.
So everybody wants to talk about the election, and of course everybody was like, the finance and like, what should I do? What do you think is going to happen after the election? We had the same thing after the last election.
What's the economy going to do?
What's going to happen? What should I do? You know what? I want to yank all my money out before the election.
I'll put it back in right after the election.
I'll put it in a couple weeks afterwards and all that. So it dawned on me, or it kind of I realized that politics is this kind of it's a big thing, especially now with the way it's presented via the media, and there's so many outlets, and you're so kind of inundated with politics far more than than we were back in 20 or 30 years ago. So I wanted to talk about politics and as I was thinking about it, as I'm driving, who better to talk about politics with than my co-host Jay Marsden, who spent a considerable amount of time in local politics.
Sure.
And so I wanted to talk about politics, but I didn't want to talk about like who do you like. I didn't want to talk about like kind of what side you're on or what side I'm on or kind of present my own political opinion. I wanted to present my opinion on politics.
Okay.
And on kind of how politics has, what we've seen kind of evolve, particularly in the last several years, on how politics is presented and how, one of the, this is not a secret topic or this is not something that people haven't talked about, but just kind of how segregated or how, how dichotomized the country seems to have gotten in the past, over the past, in this presidential, in the past several years. We'll leave it at that. We won't kind of pin it on anybody, but how and how politics has kind of become this kind of driving force in everything, and to include the economy, to include finances, to include things
law,
like that,
sure,
as well as the law. So, but I wanted to talk about kind of just the 30,000-foot view of it and get your feedback, because I'm sure that we've never really talked about on the show, because as Jay, as an elected official, he's very discreet, and he doesn't use this platform as a political pulpit, if you will. But I was interested in your view of as somebody who's involved, especially in local politics, to kind of see like how the political machine works. And and if there's something that you could change, what would you change?
Okay. All right. Well, that's a deep pool. We'll jump right into it after we take the break. But and I think this is the timing for this is right, because these conversations are coming up now as we lead into this under a year. You're right. I'm sure it's already happening for you guys. But as you sit down and talk to the people that you work with, you're going to hear all these things about what the market does, in the year of an election, what the market does based on this possible outcome in an election or that possible outcome in an election. So we could talk about those things and how those factor in and give some people.
And it's going to be super exciting.
Food for thought. Super exciting. Wicked exciting, as they say.
All right. So we'll be right back. We'll take a quick break. My FM 101.3, Money and the Law on House and Cable Access TV as well. Jay Marsden, John Drohan, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
And we're back. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3, Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. John, you guys are over in beautiful, scenic downtown Holliston. If anybody wants to get a hold of you and talk shop, how do they find you?
You can call us at 508-893-9990. That's nice. 9990, 5088. Or you can find us on, of course, maineffort.com. Or you can find us on moneyinthelaw.net.
Yes,
right?
you can.
If you
moneyinthelaw.net.
Moneyinthelaw.net, yeah. That's actually the much more interesting website than maineffort.com. Maineffort.com is, it's your classic financial planning.
I know.
Yeah, whatever.
All those disclaimers, all that.
Right.
All that.
But Money in the Law's got some much better pictures. Although we got some new pictures. Oh, and Joanne and Sharon who I work with.
Money in the Law support staff.
Very photogenic. Much more photogenic than me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the pictures came out good. So I mean, our pictures are good.
Yeah, they're all right.
Our pictures are pretty good. Yeah.
They get it done. They check a box. That's all they do.
They know what we look like.
That's right. That's right. Because you see us in the street.
Oh yeah. I thought you guys seemed like you would look younger, but
you look better on the radio. You look better on the radio. You have a face for a radio. That's the joke, right? All the time. So talking politics. So do tell. So this was something that you were, as we talked about this prior to the show, we were planning for the show. You were hot to trot on this topic. What first and foremost? What do you think about it?
So I think my initial piece of it is, and it was kind of, I heard the former President Obama talking. He was talking at his foundation, and one of his points, which I thought was very interesting, was, and again, not kind of where I'm not siding with him. He made an interesting.
You're making an observation,
right?
That's all we're doing.
So he talked about political activism and how in today's day and age, people who throw a lot of rocks, who are very kind of critical of one thing or another from either side of the aisle, if you will, but all they do is they criticize, and they're like, hey, you know what, you're wrong, I'm right, and there's no more discussion about it unless you take on my opinion, right, 100%. Then I will always consider you wrong, and I will always be right. And Obama's point was, that's not how it works. that's not what politics is. And politics, what people don't realize, and this dates back to the founding fathers, politics is all about compromise. Politics is all about everybody's different. No one thinks exactly the same as another person. No one has the same. Nothing is as important to you as it might be to me, or vice versa, or to Christian. So the whole idea of I can't go there with you. Like I can't even acknowledge you because we disagree on this point. Now there are points, and don't get me wrong, there are things that people definitely need to kind of hold their ground on, that's where the work is involved, right? There's some things that, right? Yeah, should people be allowed to kill other people? No, and most people will agree with that, right?
With that, yeah.
So there's some right, the purge, right? So there's some things that are relatively easy to say. Okay, well, I think I'm going to hold my ground on murder, on the whole the stance on murder.
Yeah.
But then there's other things, and you go down the list. There's hundreds and hundreds of topics that people are like, well, wait a minute, no, that's important to me, and you're like, well, whoa.
Well, and I'll tell you being involved locally in politics, and you mentioned a minute ago, and for those of you who don't know the background, if you will, I was on the Board of Selectmen in town in Holliston for almost 10 years. And one of the things that we used to find the most challenging in those scenarios where people would come in, and you're right, we're certainly not always going to agree. And we would talk to people, and the best friend of mine who I also serve with on one of the boards had a great phrase, and his phrase was, because we would get accused all the time of, you're not listening to me.
Yeah,
okay?
I remember.
That was the phrase. That was the phrase. People would come up all the time. They would come up while you were out, shopping. They would come up at work. They would see you at events. And every time the topic would come up, or a topic would come up, at the end of the conversation, the discussion was, you're not listening to me. And our response to that was, no, I'm listening to you, but I'm not agreeing with you, okay? And the reason in many cases for that scenario was that, to your point, everybody wants you to do it differently, all right? Everybody wants you to do it their way. And in many cases, the best that you can hope for in these scenarios is that, look, nobody knows everything, right? So in many cases, what you do is you try to find people who know what they're talking about, right? Who are the experts in a particular area.
Right.
And there's usually three types of people in the world, right? There's people who know absolutely nothing about whatever the topic is, right? And they know nothing, so they know enough to go out and find the resources who can inform them about a particular topic.
They're not pretending to know.
That's exactly right. And then there's the people who actually really do know what they're talking about, right? And those people have a particular expertise in a particular area, and they know exactly what they're talking about, right? And then there's the people in the middle, right? Who think they know what they're talking about,
what I'm talking about.
But because they think they know what they're talking about, they're unwilling, if you will, to even hazard a guess as to how much they don't know, okay? It sounds a little weird, but in many cases, that's the challenge of what you're dealing with. And so when we would address certain issues or certain topics, and by the way, this comes up at every level, at the state level and at the federal level. And if somebody came in and said, I don't agree with the way you're doing something, or I don't like the way you're doing something, the answer was always, if you have a better solution, and I'm not saying that we have to, but I'm saying, don't just tell me I don't like this, or don't just point out the fact that you don't like something, but the answer was, do you have an alternative for me to
consider
right? And to compare with whatever particular approach we're taking, right? And in many cases, the answer was, no, I don't. I just don't like what you're proposing, or I don't like what you're doing. I don't like the way you're approaching something. And there's no alternative suggested. There's no comparison. There's nothing for me to then look at and say, you know what? You might be right. And if you're not going to bring research, if you're not going to bring something that's actionable, that says, I don't think that you have all the information, then without that, if your objective is to try to accomplish something, or if your objective is to try to change somebody's mind on something, you're going to run into a brick wall. You're going to run a brick wall because people, in many cases, the people that you're asking, hopefully have done some research, hopefully have reached out to some professionals in a particular area. And unless you, and now by the way, hopefully looking at alternatives and kicking around multiple different ideas that come from different perspectives and from different. There's usually well, that's right, and there's usually common ground in there. To your point, right? There's usually common ground, and there's usually room for compromise. And of course, you hear it all the time, right? If you walk away from a situation where everybody's a little bit unhappy, that's probably the best deal you're going to get, right?
Yeah, because no one's not totally unhappy.
That's right. That's right. But in many cases, I can tell you that you don't get that all the time. What you get is your
What do you get, Jay?
Well, you just get the way you're doing it is wrong, and I'm not going to. I have no solution as to what right would be. I'm just telling you you're wrong, and
right.
that makes it at any level. And you see this, at the state level here in Massachusetts, they want to come in and they want to talk about, look, we need to figure out how to improve our transportation system, okay? Yeah. And guess what? We can do it one of two ways. Recently the talk was we can either, slowly chip away at solving these problems, and this might take 30 years, or we can close down, sections of track, and literally bus people around certain sections of track, and that's going to allow us to spend more time on the track and get more work done. And so there's an example there that says, look, I want the tracks fixed, but if you're not willing to provide solutions as to what's the best way to move that forward, you're not going to have that type of compromise. Right. You're not going to get anything done. So these issues, this approach, if you will, it applies at multiple levels.
I mean, well, and right, and we talk, in the mainstream media, there's the big issues. There's the I don't like this person. I don't like the president. I don't like the other. I don't like this. I don't like and everybody is so kind of on opposite sides of
right.
of the fence or opposite sides of the track, however you describe it, and that's kind of but this happens at your level. I mean, you saw this on a regular basis.
On a micro level, you see it in your town. That's right.
But a micro level, but it's still the same thing, right? Like you said, it's the same concept. If I don't like the way this one guy is, if I live in my yard and my property abuts somebody and this guy's doing something that I don't want him to do,
that's right?
And I'm like, hey, I don't want him raising alpacas in his yard because it makes my yard smell, right?
Right.
And you're like, well, and he shouldn't do that. He shouldn't be allowed to do that. And then, there's the law, right? There's the law that kind of everybody has to abide by.
Some zoning guidance that says he's either allowed to do that or he's not allowed to do that.
And
right?
then if he's allowed to do it, then you as the elected officials look at the law and say, well, wait a minute, let's because at the end of the day, all everybody wants is they have and this is no different than when you do an estate plan, or when I do a retirement plan. When I say, what do you want to see? Like, what's the picture you want to have drawn? What exactly do you want? And the picture may be, I don't want my yard to smell like alpacas, right? Or I don't want to feel like I am, or if you take it to a higher level, I don't want to feel that I'm discriminated against because of my sexual orientation when I go to work. And that's what I want. I want to feel like I can be the same as everybody else, or I don't want my yard to smell, whatever the discrepancy or whatever the argument is. And then you say, okay, well, this guy says that that he's totally wrong. They're totally wrong. I'm totally right, and nothing can be brought to can be managed to negotiated, if you will, to work it out. And
and the thing to keep in mind is this is the other thing. There's a process.
Well, that's true,
right? So to your point, there's a process for all of this stuff, right? So if you're unhappy with the way some aspect of, pick anything, right? So the way some aspect of your town is being handled, all the way. I mean, they had a great example today on the news. They talked about a local town around here, municipality, that had all these problems and challenges with the way the Board of Assessors was handling people's taxes, the way taxes were assessed, and problems that had come up along the way, and what the solution was and how to get that fixed, right? And the solution was they tried to get it fixed at the local level. They were having some challenges to get it fixed at the local level. They took it to the state level, and they said to the state reps, look, this needs to be fixed. We need to be able to make this change so again, you're pointing out a problem, you're pointing out and you're giving somebody alternatives, and you're saying, what's the best way for us to go about fixing this? What's the process to go about doing that? And the reason that the process is important is because the process is there for everybody. The process is there to make sure that everybody gets, by the way, a chance to be heard.
That's right. That's right.
Doesn't mean that they're
That's America.
going to be heard,
Yeah.
right?
That's what's called democracy.
That's right. They might not choose to be heard, right? They might not be dialed in to what being heard looks like, but this is about making sure that everybody gets a chance to be heard. That's why they have hearings. That's why they have meetings. That's why you have an opportunity to go to a hearing and find out that if your neighbor wants to put a rendering plant on their property, you're going to be given notice of that. Yeah. And then the reason that those things happen is so that you get a chance to be informed. So it's to your advantage to pay some attention to what goes on locally. Now, when you talk about politics and you talk about things, this is what everybody says. I'm just really busy and I just don't have the time. Okay, well, that's not true, okay? You have the time, but you're choosing to dedicate it to spending time on other things, right? You have an app on your phone. The app on your phone tells you exactly everything that went on at the Patriots game on Sunday night and everything that happened. So you'll know all that information. Or people will know everything that's going on TMZ. Right. Or they'll know everything about Beyonce's new baby or whatever it is. So they make time for that. But then when it comes time to, I can't believe the guy next door is putting up a 6-car garage. I was never given time to.
I didn't have time to go to the.
That's right. That's right. You were given. Trust me, you were given time. If you weren't, that's a problem with the process, and that has real repercussions.
Sure.
But if you were and you just chose to not make it a priority, that's a different animal. That's a different story.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And so kind of part of what President Obama's his point is that, involvement or activism isn't just throwing rocks and then going back and watching TV.
That's right.
It isn't like saying, it isn't say, throwing the javelin at somebody and saying you're wrong, you suck, and hey, and I did my part. I pointed that out. I put it out on social media.
That's right.
People responded to it. People agreed with me. People disagreed with me. Whatever. And that's my political activism. That's not it.
No, well, some people say that's my contribution.
That's my contribution, right?
I pointed out that the building was on fire, but I didn't lift a finger to try to help put it out.
Exactly. So the idea of participation and the idea of because if it's important to you, and again, if you're going to moan, if it's not important to you, if someone's going to put a 6-car garage next to your house and you don't care, then you don't care.
That's right.
Then that's okay, right?
That's
right. And if you would much rather, and if it's not important to you, and you'd much rather watch the Patriots game or do whatever it is with your time as opposed to go to the town meeting and raise your hand and get up and talk, then that's the beauty of the country that you live in.
That's your choice.
That's your choice. Because no one makes you do that. You don't have to do it. This is America. You pretty much get to come and go as you please as long as you walk within the confines of the law. So the whole idea of I'm upset about this and I want it to change. It doesn't stop it. This needs to change. And I'm mad about it.
That's right.
Or take it a step further and say, I don't like this person. I don't like this leader. I don't like this governor. I don't like this selectman. I don't like this senator. I don't like this president. I mean, if that's what your problem is, there is, as Jay pointed out, as our political consultant today pointed out, there is a process. It's called an election. It's called the American democracy of, if you don't like this person, then there are ways in order to have that person be changed, and or to have somebody different to do that position because you disagree and you and that person can't agree on things.
Well, you could even start at the bottom of the ladder, right? You could say, well, look, you know what? This is what's going on, and so there's a process to address things that you don't like or that are handled a certain way, right? And whether that means raising the issue with your local elected officials, whether it's raising the issue with a local department in town. You say, look, I want to. So there are rules that are written to address a lot of situations. And I'll give you an example, right? So in many communities, many towns, people complain about things like barking dogs. Or they complain about people's backyard fire pits, right? Backyard.
Yeah. So someone's got a new dog, by the way.
So what you do is you go to your town bylaws.
Barking fire pits.
Go to your town bylaws and find out what the rules are, right? And then if you think your neighbor, for example, is in violation of those rules, the first thing you might want to do is reach out to whatever the enforcement authority is and say to the enforcement authority, I think this is the situation that I'm faced with. How do we handle it going forward? What's the best way for me to handle this and come to you? Now, first of all, that puts you in a better light, right?
Yeah.
You go to that person, you say, I'm not firing a shot just yet, but I think I might be turning the temperature up a little bit on this issue. How do I handle it? Now, to your point, that's about changing, that's about following the process and seeing the way the process works. If, to your point, you don't like the process and you want to change the process, then you change the people, right? Yeah. And then you make a decision that says, you know what, I don't think that I like the way our local officials handle this, so I'm going to get involved. Yeah. Now, I can get involved by either running for that position myself, right? So put down the keyboard and actually pick up some nomination papers and get yourself involved.
Get some lawn signs.
Or find somebody who wants to be involved.
Get behind them.
And get behind that person and support that person and find out where they stand on these issues. Especially locally, these are easy things to do, right? Yeah. You know, your local officials, they will have coffee with you. They will have a beer with you.
Because it's their
right?
job.
That's right.
That's their job is like you're not going to have coffee with the House of Representative, your representative or your senator. It's not going to happen.
Nope. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean it's really hard, right? But they're. You know, this is why you have a local government, because the local government is supposed to represent the people. You are defined as the people. You can talk to them.
And by the way, those other people, whether it's at the state rep level, whether it's at the congressional level, they have field offices, right? They have staff. They have support staff. And if you go in and speak to the support staff, they will remember who you are. They will take note of what your complaint is, and they will work on seeing. Now, again, you can't go in completely Looney Tunes to say, you know, I pay your salary, bang your shoe on the table. It's not about that, right? Mm-hmm. This is about going in and saying, hey, you know, I have an issue, I have a concern. I think it's something that needs to be addressed at this level, and is this where I should go with this, right? I mean, to your point, right? Friends of mine used to say to me all the time, Jay, well, I don't know how you do it, right? It's not that I have no interest in what goes on in town. I have no interest in the sausage making. Right. I have no interest in the day-to-day. I don't want to go to all the meetings that you go to. I care about what's going on, but I know that you love it, right? You live and breathe it, right? You do check your emails 100 times a day. You will address all these issues. So I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to put my faith in your decision-making capabilities and your ability to kind of weed through all this stuff. And if I need to get to you because I don't like the way something's going, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Right? And that's how a lot of this works, right? But don't be a stranger. Pick up the phone, send an email, talk to at whatever level you want to be at, and make your name known. Be a familiar because people love it when there's engagement. Yeah. They love the engagement.
And that's at any level. That's in anything you do, right? So think about it, like if you're a teacher, right? And you're a teacher and you have kids that participate in class. You're like, I like that kid. And that kid may disagree with you. That kid may be, as long as they're not like, you know, disturbing the class. But you know, and I tell my kids that. I'm like, look, raise your hand. The teachers, they like that. The good teachers, they want to engage. They want you to know or to feel like that you're listening to what they're saying, that you're trying to understand what they're understanding. And if you have questions or if you disagree or if you have an opinion you want to raise, then say it.
Right.
And it's the same thing. And as we all know, life it's not clean. It's not if I send one email and then I'm just going to sit there and wait and be like, oh,
well,
you know.
Let's talk about the engagement factor. We'll take a quick break, then we'll come back and we'll talk about the level of engagement factor.
Oh yeah, here we go. He's on a roll. All right, we'll be right back on my FM 101.3. Money and the Law.
Money and the Law.
Money and the Law, and also House and Cable Access TV. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
All day long. And we're back. Money and the Law. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Ed for Financial Christian, Manning the Con. We're here in beautiful downtown, and it is a beautiful day today. I'm not sure it's going to be on Saturday, but it is a beautiful day
Saturday.
Here in downtown
Milford.
Weather. That's right. Check your weather. Talking a little bit about politics. We're talking a lot of bit about politics and how it affects the money side of things, how it affects the law side of things. You know, there will be, depending on what the next year looks like. You can already see it now. It's starting to come up. They're already starting to tee up the idea that there are certain sectors of the economy that do well depending on which side of the aisle, if you will, is successful on election day. You know, and you know, we can save this for another show down the road. But the idea that politics matters, the idea that the decisions that get made matter. People think that they don't have any ability to engage, they don't have any ability to be part of that process. Couldn't be further from the truth, especially in a year like this. You know, it's funny. Years like this kind of makes you, I mean, we always wish we were back in college for all the obvious reasons, right? But you think about the time you have now. Think about the time you have now, and you say to yourself, you know, to be in, especially you're talking to some kids who go to school up in New Hampshire, and they'll tell you, in New Hampshire, right? First in the nation,
First primary.
primary, they see these candidates, up close and personal.
Yeah.
There's no, you're on a stage and I'm in a room with 60,000 people and I'm trying to see you from the back of the cheap seats.
Right.
These are,
or you just
I'm
see
seeing
them on TV, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is, I'm seeing you in the kitchen before the event. I'm seeing you as you stand up in front of the Concord High School gymnasium. I'm seeing you at the Rotary Club. I'm seeing you at a house party. And there's a couple of pictures, you always follow. I always find the photojournalist approach to these campaigns amazing, because I forget who took the photo. I don't know if he eventually became the White House photographer or not. But there's a picture of Obama before the election kind of really got going, and before Obama became Obama. And they're at like a diner or a truck stop in Iowa, and he's there with one of his campaign aides, and he's leaning against the car smoking a cigarette, and the campaign aide is inside a telephone booth, right, making a phone call
booth,
right, to some advanced person, right? And they kind of joke about it. They say, this is one of sort of the last few photos that you could actually get that type of access before that hockey stick curve goes and he just goes viral, whatever you want to call it, right? So the idea of engagement is, I hate to say it, but you have to get out of that computer chair.
Yeah.
Right? Engagement is not, let me sit on this keyboard all day long and Facebook and let me text message and let me email people and let me, that's not engagement. That's maybe information gathering, but the engagement is boots on the ground, either volunteering or doing something other than just clicking something.
Yep.
That's not getting it done. That doesn't, I'm going to send an email. Great, send an email. You know how many emails we all get? How many emails you get? How many emails I get? How many emails Chris? That gets lost. By the way, this used to happen. We would get emails, right? And people would say, I'm going to send around the form letter.
Yeah.
And somebody would kick this letter around, and the letter would go around, and it would usually be advocating for some position. By the way, mind you, a position that I might have been on the opposite side of, but there was no additional information offered. Right. There was no additional suggestion. There was no, I know that you're coming down on this side. I'd like you to come down on this side, and here's my well thought out reasons why. The idea was that if you filled up my inbox with enough mail or email, that was somehow going to change my position. And by the way, a position that I might have come to, through some research and some hard work and some rolled up sleeves and research, and by using resources and this idea that you're going to sort of browbeat a politician, it doesn't always, again, putting aside things that aren't
the
fact-driven.
piece.
That's right. That's right. If things are more emotional, that's a different animal. But just sending a form letter doesn't get it done.
Right.
Some people think it does. It was never something that I responded to all that positively, because all it told me was, you sent an email, because if you pick up the phone and call me, different animal. Different animal.
Because that allows you to ask the question.
That's
that allows you to say,
that's right.
Hey, what tell me why. Tell me, explain to me, as opposed to me trying to kind of capture it from what you wrote in your email. And the fact that somebody call, we all know the deal. Like if you get a phone call versus an email, that's the beauty of email. Email is, if I get an email, I don't have to deal with it right now. I can table that until I have time, or I can it's because it's not an interruption as opposed to a phone call. If I answer the phone, that's technically an interruption. It's interrupting what I was doing, unless I was sitting there waiting by the phone, which is, usually I'm waiting for you to call me, like before the show.
Right, but if you make again, if you send an email, we all know we all know how much time it takes to send an email, especially when it's a form email, right? 5 seconds. Forward this to all the people you know. Okay, that's the equivalent of saying, here, I just got this letter in the mail from a Nigerian prince, and if I forward this to 1,000 people, riches and wealth will come my way, right? Well, that's not really how it works. Now, by the way, to your point,
that's not how it works.
If I get a phone call, I also get to clarify my point, right? I might have access to information that somebody might not have. The people that you're trying to advocate for might come back to you and say, were you aware of this? Mm-hmm. And people would say, oh, I wasn't aware of that, right? I know in this town, some years back, there was the possibility that a casino was going to go in town. And I used to get phone calls, being on the western end of Holliston. I used to get phone calls.
Your backyard would have abutted the casino.
That's my point. And I used to get phone calls all the time from people, and people would say, you have no idea what this casino is going to do to my community. And I would say,
you say when they put it in, you come over to my house, sit on my back porch.
Well, that's what I would say. I'd say, you have no idea what this casino is going to do to my backyard, right? I said, I can, and then they would hear that and they'd say, oh, maybe you do understand.
Yeah,
right?
maybe this means something to you, right? Yeah, maybe
that's
you have some, and that's the thing about like politicians. They're not always right. And I'm not saying that I'm not criticizing politicians.
No.
So you as a politician, or you as an elected official, or whatever kind of leader you are, you have your opinion because of what you know, and you have your opinion because of what your experiences or what your knowledge base is based on research or whatever, and that's what you think and then if someone says, well, I think you should think this way, and you say, well, I don't think that way, I think this way, and here's why, and they say, well, I think you should consider thinking this way, and here's why.
Yep.
And they present something to you and they say, okay, and they start telling you things that you didn't know, or make you aware of things that you didn't know, and that's the crux of it. That's the real meat and potatoes of what democracy is all about, because it's not clean. It's never going to be. No. It's never going to be. It's never going to be black and white. It's never going to be cut and dry. It's going to be. There's always going to be compromise. There has to be, because if not, you may so take it to the extreme level. So you have people that are like, I do not agree with a certain political party or political group, because all they care all they care about is themselves. They don't care about anything other than themselves, and they just want to promote themselves. They think that everything that they think is right and everybody else is wrong. And you're like, well, I'm not going to agree with them. And you're like, well, wait a minute. This example comes up for the people who are like, that you have people that are totally against the president, right? They're like, Trump,
no matter what he does.
You hear it a lot, right?
That's right.
And whether you are or not, I'm not trying to sway votes here, but the fact of the matter is that 66 million people voted for Donald Trump. Like that's a real number.
Yep.
That's
right.
That's reality. So whether or not you agree with him or not, that's something that you can't disagree with. That's a fact, right? So there's a reason for that. Now, for whatever reason people voted, I can't say that, but
everyone has their opinion.
But the fact that happened, and the fact that that's real, you can't disregard that. You can't just say, well, that's 66 million people that are wrong.
That's right.
That's 66 million people whose opinions I don't value because of that choice that they made. And then the same thing on the other side. You could say, well, these people voted for Hillary Clinton, and I hate Hillary Clinton. I hate whatever. I hate the Democrats. I hate Bill Clinton or whomever.
It's not their scene. That's right.
Whatever their reason is, and they can't say, well, wait a minute. This is how many million of people voted for them, and.
Well, this is why the process is so important, right? Whether you like a particular individual or you don't like a particular individual, right? This is why the process is so important, because the people are always going to change, right? And by the way, the people can change the process, and that's fine. But that means that anybody can change the process, which is good and which is bad, depending on how you feel about it. But the idea that we always try to tell people, appreciate the process, appreciate, understand, and work within. People say, oh, government works slowly, government does this, government does that. Well, government works slowly for a reason, right? And for the right reasons, that things should take time. For a lot of the right reasons. Things should unfold. You don't want this herky-jerky reaction to different things, right? So a lot of it is understanding the process. And you see this at the local level quite a bit, and you see it at the state level quite a bit, which is to say, how do I get things, because people always take a step back and say, I'm so removed from what goes on. Right? And the answer is, well, you're removed if you want to be removed.
Yeah, you're removed because it's your choice.
And that's fine. That's fine. But you don't have to be removed, right? Yeah. I mean, it is a contact sport, and it doesn't take a lot for you, because people stand out, right? If you don't know your state rep, I'm telling you, for the most part, your state rep probably has office hours. They probably have coffee hours in your community, right? Or they have an office that you can go to and you can introduce yourself and you can make yourself known. And those things, making yourself known, I'm not saying that you have to throw a gigantic parade for somebody. I'm saying making yourself known and making yourself known as somebody who understands. Well, they like that too. But making yourself known and making yourself known as somebody who understands the process, that will help you if you have a certain particular agenda that you're trying to advance, that will help you do that, right? Because they will see you as a person who brings them ideas, brings them solutions, brings them complaints. They're not opposed to complaints. That's why everybody gets into that business. You want to help out, and helping out means fixing problems. But you also have to understand that they can't wave a magic wand and do something overnight, because your problem might be somebody else's win, right? You want this to happen. Well, this other person, you don't want that business next to you, but there's a zoning law that says that we have to put them somewhere, and you just happen to live, unfortunately, right on the edge of this particular zoning district. And so how do you fix that? What's the solution? And by the way, you may walk away unhappy, but this is a marathon, right? You can't win every battle. Everything can't go your way. The process is there to respect everybody's rights that are involved, in these decisions that government makes. And so if you want to be involved, and by the way, start small, start local, right? Because those local people are going to be connected into, are going to be more tied into the people that are further up the food chain. Your elected officials in your town probably work very closely with your reps. Your state reps in your town probably work very closely with the state senators. Your state senators work very closely and are on a first-name basis with your congressional reps, and your congressional reps have offices, and the people in those offices reach out to so there's a chain of command here that you can kind of see where it flows, right? So, are you going to get to somebody at Senator Markey's office? Are you going to get to somebody at Senator Warren's office? No.
Not on the first try, but it doesn't mean you can't.
No, that's right. Yeah. And is your congressional representative, are they going to be able to make a phone call? Yes. The staffers in the congressional rep office know the staffers in the senator's office, and so they can call over there and say, you know what, we can put you in touch with somebody. We can at least get your issue, whatever that might be, the hearing, if you will, that it needs to be, to see where this thing goes. And that was one of the things that always amazed me as an elected official, was by working through the channels, how far up the food chain you could get to get somebody to get something done for you.
But at the end of the day, it's going to take a little work, right?
That's right. It never happens fast.
It's going to take work, and it may take some persistence on your part, and that's the way it is. And again, it all comes back to, like, this is important to you. If you want to get involved, if you really want to, if you want to be part of this, and if you want to like make a difference, if you want to be active, if you want to be a quote unquote activist, that's what it is. It's not just sitting there and saying, hey, this is wrong, and somebody fix it. It's like, hey, this is wrong. Here's what I know, and here's why I think it's wrong. Right. And I want people to understand this. I want people to understand my opinion, and knowing full well that there's going to be plenty of differences to my opinion out there. But because this is important to me, I'm willing to do the work and do the legwork to see if I can get this fixed, or if I can get this changed, or if I can get, or if there can be a compromise that's better than what the situation is right now.
Well, and here's the other thing, by the way. Do this. This is going to sound, you'll understand when I explain it, but do this when you don't need to do this, right? If you're making connections, if you're meeting your local elected officials, if you're meeting your local state reps in your state, if you're meeting them when you need nothing, right, per se, right? You don't have any urgency to what you need. It gives you a chance to find out how
this is politics,
how the process works.
This is how the politicians
This is
work,
how
right?
it happens, right?
Yeah.
Because
he's right.
Because I understand when something goes wrong, or you think something goes wrong, or your perception is something's being done wrong, everybody wants it fixed yesterday, and the system is just not designed to fix things yesterday for all the I think in many of the right reasons. That's why when you know who the players are and you know who can help you sort of take care of things that might come up, then they move a little faster, because you know the process and you know who to talk to and who can help you get your issue in front of the right people so that we can get it solved. I'm not saying you're getting a shortcut. I'm not saying you're getting a favor. I'm not saying you're getting some backdoor deal that you shouldn't get. I'm saying that a lot of the things that people are most frustrated with government are fixable if put in the right context, in front of the right people at the right time. And when you don't do any of the things that we've talked about today, and then you show up and you say, I demand change, and everybody looks at you and says, who are you?
Yeah.
Where did you come from? Are you even, that's the part that makes it, that people will take a step back and say, all right, settle down. Let's figure out what's going on. Because guess what? Because then they think you have an agenda. Then they think you're looking for some sneaky deal. Because then they've seen you before. They have no idea who you are, and you're not a known quantity. So, spend some time. Not a ton of time. But, pay attention, right? Figure out, go to a couple of other websites, by the way, that aren't TMZ, right? Figure out what's going on local government-wise, But watch, a lot of this stuff is on. Where can you watch a lot of this stuff? Oh, that's right, on your fantastically, awesomely operated local cable access television like Holliston Cable Access Television.
Come on,
right?
really?
So you can watch it.
They're not just throwing, they're not syndicated money in the law?
Some of this stuff, you don't even have to leave your house to watch.
That's right.
You
want to watch the Finance Committee? There you go.
And I'm not saying that you're going to watch it all. I'm not saying you're going to TiVo this stuff if you're even TiVoing stuff anymore. I'm just saying it's easy. It's easier to be up to speed.
Yeah.
Now, on the front end, there's some work. But once you do the groundwork, once you get yourself, into sort of understanding what's happening, then the learning happens a lot faster. The first time you sit down to read board minutes, you're going to be bored. That's why they call them board minutes, right? You're going to be bored, right? But as you go through this and you do this a little bit more, you're able to pull out what's the important stuff, right? I don't need to know every single thing. I just need to know 30,000 foot what's going on. Do yourself the favor. I'm telling you, it's a phenomenal process. You're going to see it unfold this year to the degree of, I don't even know, minutia, the degree of, it's going to be all consuming this year.
Yeah.
So, again, locally or at the state level, you really have an impact, and people matter, and people's opinions matter, and again, as a former elected official, we always love to have people who came in who understood the process, well educated, and who were willing to come in and say, you're thinking about this wrong, not because I just don't like your position.
Not because I don't like you.
You're thinking about this wrong because I'm not sure you have all the information, and here's more information to help you make the most informed decision so that we can move the community forward. That's what this whole thing is all about. And we always, a good elected official will always welcome that.
There you go. All right.
All right.
We got to wrap it up.
All right, let's wrap it up.
I gotta pull you off your pulpit.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
All right. All right. Vote to adjourn?
Yeah, vote to adjourn. I like to keep my skills up.
All right, there you go. All right, so we'll see everybody. Thanks for joining us today on Politics Talks on Money in the Law.
Money in the Law.
That's right, Money in the Law and Politics. We'll be back next Saturday, My FM 101.3, the greatest radio station on God's green earth, and Holliston Cable Access TV. We'll be back next Saturday at 9 o'clock. Tune in if you want to reach us, moneyinthelaw.net, moneyinthelaw.net, moneyinthelaw.net.
Send us an email.
All right,
be
we'll
well.
see you by next week.
See you.